Hey guys, this is Matt from Project Unbroken. I'm here with Greg, and we wanted to talk a little bit about different, maintenance programs when it comes to recovery. So Greg and I have completely different experiences with transitioning from heroin to, I did Suboxone, and Greg did the Methadone route. And I honestly, like right now, I have no idea what Greg's experiences are with that, and I don't think he has much knowledge of what I went through with Suboxone. So we're going to kind of hash it out today, talk about maybe the similarities and the differences, the positives and the negatives of each. And if you guys are out there looking for a path to recovery and you're thinking about either one, maybe you can get a little bit of information from this conversation. So I'll let Greg start off with his kind of info.
All right, yeah, so first, I have done both, actually. I've done Suboxone and Methadone. I did Suboxone with Matt, actually, for a while when we first started trying to quit. And I think there's great things with Suboxone and bad things with Suboxone, just like Methadone. For me, Suboxone was more of a crutch. I don't think I was totally ready to get clean when I started taking Suboxone. And I would basically use it to, as a crutch. Like I said, when I couldn't get dope, I would use that. Or I would use it for a week, I would fall off, start getting high, and then use it as a crutch again.
To not withdraw,
right?
Basically.
And the doctor I was getting it from was giving me 180 pills a month of the 8 milligrams. So basically I was selling most of them and then buying dope with it. So I know a lot of people do that as well. But I think Suboxone can be great. I think you can talk more about the experience with successful experience, but I can see it being a really good tool when you're really ready to quit and when you withdraw yourself away, like we talked about in other videos, where you can't get dope or you really don't want to get it, you're really ready to quit, or you're just in an area where you can't contact anyone. I think it can be a great tool, but I'll let Matt cover there. I mainly want to talk about Methadone. I'll cover this in other videos, but I'll shortly talk about the upsides and downs of that since Matt doesn't have experience with it, and he'll cover more Suboxone. So Methadone is one of the big reasons I was able to get clean, but I still have a jolted view on it, I guess you could say. How do you say that? Jolted?
Jolted.
Recommending people to take Methadone is still tough for me, even though it helped me quit, because it is a bitch to get off. Let me tell you that. And when you're on it, I mean, I don't really remember much of what I did when I was on Methadone. It was like I was a freaking zombie. You don't think straight. And when I first got on it, I was kind of still trying to get high, so I took way too much to start. I think they started me at 30, and I kept going up saying, oh, it's not working yet. So I was on way too high of a dose, so if you do start, just be careful of that.
What's because I don't know anything about it. What, like when you say 30?
30 milligrams.
Okay.
Start now. Then they'll gradually send you up as you go through the program.
So you start with a lower
dose.
And is it, they ramp you up because you're becoming...
Well, you'll come in and, you come in for your dose, and they'll be like, well, how are you feeling today? And I'd be like, oh, I don't feel good. You know what I mean? So I wanted more, and I was trying to get high. I wanted to quit, but I'm like, well, I'm taking Methadone, so I might as well feel good too, right? So that's one of the things you got to be careful of, is getting on too high of a dose. And again, the other thing is that it's so hard to get off. Like when I detoxed, I was on 105 milligrams for my maintenance. Like every day I was taking 105 milligrams. When I decided this is it, like I'm done, I found out my son was being born, and from that point on, it was like, bam, like I'm done. Like I'm going to figure out a plan to get off. And from that day, I came down 1 milligram a week, all right? So it took me 2 years to detox, and still, we were hanging out when I was at the end.
You were exercising.
Yeah.
Like
you got me here right when I was at the end. And I still didn't sleep for 2 weeks to a month. Still.
So let me ask you this. When you started your detox on the way down, from the 105, that was the peak. Like that was
the 105. I was on for like a year or two.
But that was like the most you would ever
105
get.
105 was the most, yes.
So were you still getting high?
No. So that's the thing. After a while, look, if you're going on Methadone, you're trying to use it to get high. It's pointless because it's going to be harder to get off. Okay, the more you take, the harder the detox is. Right. So it's a good question. And then also, you're not going to get high. You might get high for a few days. You might feel good for a few days, but you're going to get used to it, and it's going to be like the same, like you were taking 40. So there's no point if you do go the Methadone route. In my opinion, there's no no reason to go higher than you need to go. Okay, I understand from an addict mindset, you want to try to feel better, but there's no point because you're going to feel the same as you did from a lower dose once you even out.
What was the like? I've been in that methadone clinic, and I'll touch on that later about what happened there. But what was the culture inside the methadone clinic? So I'm guessing you have like a counselor that you're working with that you're telling how you feel or whatever.
Somewhat, you see. I think I saw my counselor maybe once a month, but
did they give you any shit about saying like I need more, or is it like, or is they just don't want you doing heroin?
Pretty much.
Like they don't care if necessarily you're getting high off of.
Yeah. So the program I was in, they basically the more you test clean, the more you can do take home bottles. So eventually I was taking home like a week at a time. If you do pills, you can actually take home almost a month at a time. But if you test dirty, you get to go every day. You get to show up every day. And eventually, if you keep testing dirty, they kick you off.
Okay.
Now, I think it's different for each methadone program. It changes from program to program. But, I mean, that's how it was there.
Okay. Got it.
So anyway, so on my way down, just so you know how this went, I really was comfortable the whole way down. Because remember, I started at 30 milligrams, and I probably could have flatlined there. Like, I probably could have started on 30 and stayed there and been comfortable. So, I mean, all the way down, I would say I started feeling withdrawal symptoms around 10 or so, like a little bit, not super uncomfortable. Then I got down to the 3, 2, 1 milligrams those last few weeks, and I started kind of feeling it. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't like normal withdrawal, but I couldn't sleep. I had restless legs, and that was the most of it. Like, it wasn't really intense withdrawing, but it was, I was uncomfortable. So the big thing with methadone is you got to know that it's going to be hard to get off. Okay, you got to be ready for that battle to come off it, because in a way, methadone I think can be harder to get off than dope. And there's a lot of people in that program where they go to jail or they have to come off quick. Like if you get caught taking a poor drug test and you fail for whatever, and they end up saying, "Look, you're done," they'll take you off 5 milligrams a day until you're at 0, and then you're withdrawing like you would on heroin for a month instead of a week. So it's really dangerous as an alternative. Although it worked for me, I would still say proceed with caution because it's hard to get off. And again, when you're on it, you're kind of like a zombie. So it's really tough for me to say, this is a great alternative. It is an alternative that can work. Obviously, it worked for me, but you got to be very careful. I think Suboxone's a way better route because I think in the same situation, at the point I was at by the time I started coming off, if I was on Suboxone, that would have been just as good.
Yeah.
So
right.
You got to be careful with methadone. It can work, but there's a lot of dangers to it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they probably both come with, their areas that you have to watch out for.
Yeah.
I mean, because going back, I know Greg and I, we just saw a billboard, and it was like, get off. Off of opiates or whatever, call this number. And there was a doctor in Wilmington who has definitely lost their license. I think there was a big lawsuit against them. But Greg and I, this was around the first time we started to try to quit heroin. We saw this sign. We were like, let's give it a shot. Called up there. So they charged you for the initial meeting, and it was not cheap. It was a couple $100.
Well, the whole thing I remember was $600. I remember clearly.
It was $600, and I remember, we scraped this money together. Greg paid for it. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember it was a large investment if you're a heroin addict.
Mm-hmm.
$600.
Shit, that's a full log right there.
Yeah, that's it.
It's 130 bags of heroin.
So we were really, trying to quit, and this was the first thing that we came across. So I remember Greg went in, and I was with him. I was waiting in the car, and it was $600 per person. We couldn't do that, so we were like, we'll split, whatever this is. And I think the doctor, the whole program, he sent you out with like maybe 10 pills.
At the most.
Suboxone.
It was like a week's worth.
Yeah, it was like a week's worth of pills.
To get you through the withdrawal stage.
To get you, yeah. So supposedly you're supposed to be able to get through this withdrawal stage, and then you're good.
You're good. That's
after
it.
7 days.
Magic.
So we were like, we split them, and we split these pills, and we were like, let's see what happens. And I'm pretty sure it won't be hard for you to guess what happened. A couple days later, we were back on the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was super discouraging. And that's a whole another topic. Is that there are definitely predatory
Hell yeah.
Forces out there trying to prey on people that are struggling with addiction, and that are realizing their lives are becoming unmanageable. And this was one of those people, and that's there's a special place in hell for people that are doing stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But anyways, I think after Greg and I kind of went our separate ways when we were trying to get clean, I struggled for a while with it. I ended up finding a reputable doctor not far from where I lived, but it was not an easy program to get into. And the way they had it set up is you would have to go see like a physician, and part of the program is you would have to go see a psychiatrist. They were like a partner team together. And the guy was cool. I'd go once a week. He would write me a week's worth of a week's prescription for Suboxone. And I started with like 8 milligrams a day, which is like a regular pill.
Yeah. They come in, 8, 2, and 4, if I remember right?
I think so. I mean, actually, when I was doing them, I would just break them into quarters. They were, whatever. But it that started the process for me, and it was great. I found a lot of success with that. It took me about a year from start to finish with Suboxone, and I would just constantly wean myself down. And to be honest, I still to this day don't know, because there was a drastic change, like from the last sliver of Suboxone I had. It was like maybe a milligram, I think, to the day one of nothing. I don't know if it was psychological.
So I was going to ask you.
I don't know, but there was a dramatic difference.
Well, we're so used to taking something every single day to feel better for years, and all of a sudden you have nothing.
Yeah.
Even if it's a little sliver, I think that's definitely some psychology and some physical.
Yeah. And I remember specifically what I was doing. It was I was in Philadelphia, and keep in mind I was still drinking. Like I was still drinking pretty regularly. But I was in Philly. I went out, had my last dose of Suboxone, woke up the next day, and I was like, what now? I gotta do this on my own, and I did not feel good about it. And there was, for a long time, and I knew it was gonna be a long time. It took me a while to get back to like a base level of feeling okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was and I prepared for this. I expected it. And again, maybe it was a placebo effect of just not having a crutch to fall back on every day. But it was tough. I really had to work hard to keep my mental health in a decent place. By now I was trying to exercise and do things like that to create, the healthy chemicals and hormones in my mind naturally. I was trying to eat better. It was difficult.
Yeah.
All in all, it was a good experience. One thing I really liked about it is I was able to completely remove myself from other addicts. I know at the methadone clinic, you're just surrounded by them.
Well, half the people at the methadone clinic are selling their methadone.
And they're gaming the system.
Right.
I realized that, and it was nice to just not be around that anymore. Because half of that those are easy things to fall into. I mean, and those, when you get a bunch of addicts together, the conversation goes south real quick.
Yeah.
When it's like, hey, let's sell this, or let's go get this, or it's.
I mean, it's a whole other topic, but that's one of the things that I don't like about outpatient rehab. It's almost like putting fuel in fire sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
But to stay on topic, one of the things I did when I was on methadone is, like you said, it's been so long since we haven't taken something. I actually went and I said, I want to get another week's worth. And so I went, and at that time I was getting a week at a time. So I got my week's worth where I had 6 bottles. I took my dose that day, and they give you 6 bottles. So I had 6 bottles that each had 1 milligram in it, and I did that for an extra week. And what I did was like, all right, I'm going to just take these home, but I'm not going to take them. So that way I'm like, if I start feeling like complete shit, I'll take it. Maybe I'll do it every other day, or I'll do it every third day. It got to the point where I got to day 1, and I was like, I'm not comfortable, but it's not horrible. Day 2, same thing. Yeah, I'm not sleeping, but look, I don't got cold sweats. I'm not throwing up. I don't got too bad of anxiety. I mean, you all know how bad withdrawal can get. It wasn't that bad. I mean, it sucked, but it wasn't that bad. And I just knew that I had my bottles there just in case. So maybe if you're coming down, keep that little bit there if you're ready. You got to be at the right stage. I was ready to quit. I was done. Like you got to keep that in mind. In my head, I was done. I just wanted to not be super, super uncomfortable. And I knew if I ever got to that point, I had the 1 milligram there to kind of keep me, keep that withdrawal more stabilized. So that's an option you can do is when you're coming down, just maybe keep a very, very low dose for that time where maybe you are scared of being super uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then a lot of stuff can happen. It's a stressful time. So, a lot of this stuff, you have to look at all the things that are going on in your life and prepare yourself as much as you can for dealing with that level of discomfort or whatever it is. And it's a slippery slope, man. It's one of those things because that's definitely keeping that little stash for yourself is definitely coming from a place of addiction.
And that's why I said I was completely ready.
Yeah, and it's not coming from a bad place. You do have to be, because I did the same thing with Suboxone. Like I would cut up little pieces and I'd be like, I'll just keep these up in the cabinet and save them for a rainy day. And I did this, and I wasn't quite ready yet. So when you make that decision, I think it's good to leave yourself, a little bit of leeway in case you do, if you're just not comfortable with a certain situation or whatever, leave that there, and then just be smart about it. And you have to be ready for that level of discomfort, and you don't want it to be overwhelming. Like to Greg's point, a lot of it may have been for you too psychological. Like you're like, I'm not getting these sweats. I don't have the restless legs. I don't have these flu-like symptoms that come with rough withdrawal. I just kind of missed that crutch. I think a lot of it is in our minds that, mentally you have to just remember what your goal is, what your mission is with the whole thing and stay strong.
And I just knew when I did that, I think it's very important to bring this out. I knew I was done. I went through 2 years of this detox. My son was here. I'm not going back. And I knew that. Mm-hmm. It was just there just in case I'm going to get very, very uncomfortable. I'm going to do this no matter what. If I'm very uncomfortable, I might go through those 6 bottles. After that, it was done no matter what. It was kind of nice for me knowing it was there as a backup. I think what Matt was kind of bringing up is you got to be careful with that as well because you don't want that. For different people, that can kind of bring you down the wrong path. So just be aware of where you are in your recovery and how confident you are you're going to quit if you're going to use something like that, like a crutch. Your thing.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point.
One thing that I'm wondering as we're shooting this is there's probably parents out there that are wondering should I put my kid on Suboxone or Methadone? I think we can do a different video for that because I think there's different aspects of that. But as far as this one, for you addicts out there, it can definitely help. Matt used Suboxone, I use Methadone, but it just really depends on where you are. Be aware of how you can use it as a crutch. You can end up making things worse. You can sell it to get more dope. So that's kind of the main thing we want to talk about, I think.
Yeah, and just take whatever path you think is going to be most successful for you. You may know people that have used one method or the other or both. Do your research. When you're ready to make a decision, do your research. Again, we've talked about today on this conversation, just going to the first billboard we saw and we got ripped off, and it really was a huge roadblock for our recovery. Yeah. I mean, it was almost one of those things where we're like, well, we tried.
Yeah.
And then, we were just back on the wagon. So if you start thinking about, if you're still deep in your addiction, you're starting to look for ways out, don't just jump at the first flashy sign like we did, because a lot of times there's a little more, behind the curtain there.
And if you start taking Suboxone or Methadone and you're trying to take a higher dose to still get high, you might not be totally right. You might want to put yourself in check, right? And we've talked about accountability before. If it's going through your head, well, let me increase my dose so I can get high like I did with Methadone, like we've done with Suboxone. You got to put yourself in check. What am I really doing? Do I want to really get clean right now? You know what I mean? Put yourself in check. So.
Yeah, and it's, a lot of times it's still, and maybe in your case, when you started that road through Methadone and you were still trying to get high, it's, I would imagine it's still not a healthy behavior to deal with addiction, but it's better than just grabbing heroin off the street, especially nowadays. 100%. You know, with the fentanyl and everything they're cutting it with, raising overdose rates through the roof. It's still better to be in some form of recovery, but think about what you're doing. Think about your thought process through the whole thing, and try to talk to the addict part of your mind and be like, this isn't healthy behavior.
And that's actually one of the strengths I forgot to cover about methadone is I couldn't get high on it. Like I tried. The first year I was on methadone, every once in a while I would try to get high on heroin. I just couldn't.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the methadone is so strong. Now, if you're shooting up and you're shooting up a lot, you can probably feel it, but not nearly as much. So in my case, I was sniffing heroin, and I would sniff like 4 or 5 bags, and I still wouldn't even feel it. So then I'm just like, why am I even going to keep doing this? And then I wasn't going to get off the methadone, so I could start using dope again, because that meant I had to go through withdrawal. So, I mean, that's one of the strengths is it's hard, a lot harder to get high than it is with Suboxone, where you can take like a 12 to 18 hour break, not really withdraw that much and get high. Mm-hmm. Whereas methadone, it's a lot longer, where it blocks it a lot longer.
Right. So you're going to deal with the consequences more.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, I think that about covers it for our thoughts on Suboxone and methadone, or at least some of our experience with it. If you guys have any more questions on that topic, leave us a comment below, and we would be happy to touch on that later.
Definitely.
All right, guys, thanks for watching, and make sure to check us out at projectunbroken.com. We will be talking to you soon. Take care.
See you guys.